The evening sun was setting over the city skyline when a well-dressed businessman walked into the Grand Plaza Hotel. He had just finished a long day of meetings and was looking forward to a quiet night's rest. His perfectly pressed navy suit showed signs of a busy day, and his leather briefcase held the contracts he just closed on a major tech deal. After nearly missing his flight and sitting through heavy traffic, all he wanted was to check in and unwind. The hotel lobby was impressive, with its crystal chandeliers and marble floors, though if you looked closely, you could see the signs of wear and tear, small chips in the marble, slightly dusty corners, and outdated furniture that had seen better days. Still, it was one of the city's most well-known hotels, and he had specifically chosen it for its convenient downtown location. As he approached the front desk, the receptionist was chatting and laughing with a couple who had just finished checking in. But when she noticed him walking up, her warm smile quickly faded. He patiently waited as she took her time organizing some papers, deliberately avoiding eye contact. "Good evening," he said with a friendly smile, placing his platinum credit card and ID on the counter. "I have a reservation for tonight." The receptionist, wearing a name tag that read Lead Concierge, barely glanced at his documents. Her fingers moved slowly across the keyboard as she made a show of checking the system. "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not seeing any reservation under your name," she said, her tone dismissive. He pulled out his phone and showed her the confirmation email. "I booked it last week. Here's my confirmation number." "Oh, I see it now," she replied, clicking her mouse a few times. "But unfortunately, we're completely booked for tonight. There must have been a system error with your reservation." Just then, the front doors opened, and another guest walked in. The receptionist's face immediately brightened. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Grand Plaza. How may I help you today?" The businessman stood there quietly, observing as the new guest, who didn't have a reservation, was quickly helped and assigned a room. He noticed other guests easily checking in too, none of them facing any system errors or fully booked situations. Instead of causing a scene, he walked to the elegant sitting area in the lobby and took a seat in one of the oversized leather chairs. He pulled out his phone and began making calls, his voice low and professional. While waiting, he watched the hotel's operations with keen interest. He noticed the peeling wallpaper in one corner, the slightly limping bellhop who needed better work shoes, and the way the bar area was practically empty during what should have been peak hours. A quick search on his phone revealed interesting information about the hotel's financial struggles. The once prestigious Grand Plaza had been losing money for months. Reviews complained about declining service, outdated rooms, and poor management. Even more interesting was a small news article about the parent company quietly looking for buyers. He smiled slightly as he dialed another number. "Hello, David. Remember that investment opportunity we discussed last week? I think I've found something better. How quickly can you get the team together?" He glanced at his watch. "Meet me at the coffee shop around the corner in 15 minutes. Trust me, this is going to be interesting." As he stood up to leave, he caught the receptionist watching him nervously. He gave her a polite nod, knowing that in just a couple of hours, everything was about to change. Sometimes the best response to discrimination isn't anger or confrontation, it's success. The doors swung shut behind him as he stepped out into the evening air, already planning his next move. The real story was just beginning, and it would be a night that everyone at the Grand Plaza Hotel would remember for a very long time. Just around the corner from the Grand Plaza Hotel, a cozy coffee shop buzzed with evening customers. The businessman sat at a corner table, his laptop open, and several papers spread out before him. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air as his team began to arrive one by one. Within minutes, his lawyer, financial advisor, and 2 senior partners from his tech company had joined him. "So, what's this amazing opportunity you couldn't tell us about over the phone?" asked his lawyer, stirring sugar into his coffee. The businessman recounted what had just happened at the hotel, keeping his voice steady despite the frustration still simmering beneath the surface. "But here's the interesting part," he continued, turning his laptop around to show them. "The Grand Plaza isn't just any hotel. It's part of a chain that's been struggling lately. Look at these numbers." He pulled up financial reports that showed declining revenue, mounting maintenance costs, and dropping customer satisfaction scores. His financial advisor leaned forward, adjusting her glasses. "These figures are worse than I expected. The parent company must be desperate to sell." She scrolled through more documents, her eyes widening. "The property value alone is worth double what they're asking." While they talked, more customers entered the coffee shop. The businessman noticed how the staff treated everyone with equal respect and courtesy, such a stark contrast to his experience just minutes ago. It reinforced his conviction that good business and good values should go hand in hand. "We could turn this place around," he said, pulling out more papers from his briefcase. "I've been looking to diversify my investments anyway. Think about it. Prime downtown location, historic building, great potential. It just needs proper management and a fresh perspective." His team jumped into action. The lawyer started making calls to begin the paperwork, while the financial advisor crunched numbers on her calculator. The partners from his tech company were already sketching out plans for modernizing the hotel's outdated systems. "What about the current staff?" one partner asked, looking up from his notes. "Especially that receptionist." The businessman paused, thinking carefully. "This isn't about revenge," he replied, taking a sip of his now cold coffee. "It's about making things right. We'll implement proper training programs, update their policies, create better working conditions. Sometimes the best way to change people's minds is to show them a better way." Through the coffee shop's window, he could see the hotel's illuminated sign glowing in the darkening sky. He remembered his own early days, when he was just starting his tech company, how some people had underestimated him or tried to put him down. Instead of letting it break him, he'd had used it as motivation to work harder and smarter. His phone buzzed with a message. Their offer had already reached the hotel's parent company. The response was immediate. They were interested. Very interested. "Look at these reviews," one partner said, scrolling through his phone. "Complaints about outdated rooms, poor service, no innovation. We could fix all of this. Imagine turning it into the most welcoming, modern hotel in the city." The lawyer hung up her phone with a satisfied smile. "They're ready to move forward. They can have the paperwork ready within the hour." Apparently, they've been trying to sell for months with no serious buyers. The businessman stood up, straightening his tie. His team looked at him expectantly, energy and excitement in their eyes. They all knew they weren't just buying a hotel. They were buying an opportunity to prove that success is the best answer to prejudice. "Let's head back," he said, gathering his papers. "But first, I want all of you to try checking in. Let's see if they're still fully booked." A knowing smile crossed his face as he left a generous tip for the coffee shop staff. As they walked back toward the Grand Plaza, the evening had fully settled in. The hotel's facade glowed against the night sky, its potential visible beneath its current state of decline. In just a few hours, everything would change, not with anger or confrontation, but with dignity, business sense, and a plan for positive change. The next hour turned into a fascinating experiment. One by one, the businessman's team members walked into the Grand Plaza Hotel, each trying to book a room. Just as he expected, his white colleagues were met with friendly smiles and immediate service. "Of course we have rooms available." The same receptionist chirped happily to each of them. Meanwhile, the businessman and his lawyer sat in their parked car across the street, watching the hotel's entrance through the windshield. They recorded every interaction, noting the stark difference in treatment. His lawyer shook her head as she reviewed the footage on her tablet. "This is textbook discrimination," she said quietly. "But what you're about to do will send a much stronger message than any lawsuit could." Just then, his phone lit up with an incoming call. The hotel chain's corporate office was ready. All documents were prepared. They seemed almost suspiciously eager to close the deal quickly. The businessman smiled, knowing their rush would work in his favor. "The papers are being sent over now," he told his team as they regrouped in the parking lot. "Once everything's signed, this place is ours. Remember, we're not here to shame anyone. We're here to make things better." Inside his briefcase were the business plans they'd drawn up at the coffee shop. Detailed ideas for renovating the rooms, upgrading the systems, and most importantly, transforming the hotel's culture. He had built his tech company on the principles of innovation and inclusion, and he planned to bring the same values here. As they walked back into the lobby, the receptionist was busy rearranging her desk items, still unaware of what was about to happen. The businessman noticed how she deliberately avoided looking in their direction, pretending to be absorbed in her task. The regional manager arrived within minutes, having been called by corporate. His face was flushed, and he kept tugging at his collar as he greeted them. "Please, come this way," he said, leading them to a conference room off the main lobby. The signing process was quick and straightforward. With each signature, the businessman felt a quiet satisfaction, not from getting revenge, but from knowing he was about to turn something negative into something positive. "Congratulations," the regional manager said weakly, handing over the final papers. "The Grand Plaza is now yours." The businessman stood up, straightening his jacket. "Thank you. Now, would you mind calling all available staff to the lobby? I'd like to introduce myself properly." As the staff gathered, confusion was clear on their faces. The receptionist stood at the back, still wearing that same dismissive expression from earlier, at least until the regional manager made the announcement. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet the new owner of the Grand Plaza Hotel." The businessman stepped forward, watching as recognition dawned on the receptionist's face. Her expression shifted from dismissive to shocked, then embarrassed. But instead of addressing her directly, he spoke to the entire group. "I'm here because I believe in second chances," he said, his voice calm and clear. "This hotel has amazing potential, and so do all of you. Starting tomorrow, we're going to bring the Grand Plaza into a new era." He pulled out the plans from his briefcase. "We're not just going to renovate the building, we're going to rebuild our entire approach to hospitality. Every guest who walks through those doors deserves respect, regardless of who they are. And every staff member deserves the training and support they need to succeed." The receptionist stared at the floor, her face red. But when she finally looked up, she found her new boss looking at her with understanding rather than anger. "I expect to see all of you at tomorrow morning's staff meeting," he continued. "We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I believe we can make this hotel a place where everyone feels welcome." As the staff dispersed, many already whispering excitedly about the coming changes, the businessman stood in the lobby of his new hotel. Through the grand windows, he could see the city lights twinkling. Sometimes life's worst moments could lead to the best opportunities, not just to succeed, but to make a real difference. The next morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the hotel's lobby windows. Staff members gathered nervously in the main conference room, many arriving early, curious about what changes their new owner would bring. The receptionist from yesterday sat in the back row, hands folded tightly in her lap, unsure of what to expect. The businessman walked in precisely on time, carrying a stack of folders. Gone was yesterday's formal suit. Today he wore business casual attire, making him seem more approachable. Behind him, a team of consultants wheeled in a presentation screen. "Good morning, everyone," he began warmly. "Before we talk about changes, I want to hear from you. What challenges do you face in your daily work?" At first, the room stayed quiet, but slowly, hands started rising. A maintenance worker spoke up first. "Half our equipment is broken, and we never have enough supplies." Others nodded in agreement. A housekeeper mentioned how they were always understaffed, rushing to clean rooms without proper tools. The bartender talked about outdated systems that made checking tabs a nightmare. The businessman listened carefully, taking notes. When the receptionist timidly raised her hand, everyone turned to look at her. We never had proper training, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. They just told us to figure things out on our own. Instead of singling her out, the new owner nodded understandingly. That changes today, he said, passing out the folders. Inside, you'll find our 3-month plan. Yes, we're renovating the hotel, but more importantly, we're investing in you. The folders contained detailed training schedules, new employee benefits packages, and pictures of updated equipment that would be arriving next week. The staff's eyes widened as they flipped through the pages. Starting today, every employee will receive proper training, not just in their job duties, but in customer service, cultural sensitivity, and conflict resolution. We're also raising salaries to be competitive with top hotels in the city. A buzz of excitement filled the room. The maintenance worker who'd spoken up earlier raised his hand again. Sir, these new tools, they're top-of-the-line models. Because you deserve top-of-the-line equipment to do your jobs well, the businessman replied. When we invest in our staff, we invest in our guests' experience. He clicked to the next slide, showing renovation plans for the hotel. While the updates are happening, you'll all receive full pay. We're not laying anyone off. Instead, we're hiring more staff to ensure reasonable workloads. The receptionist listened intently, tears forming in her eyes. Instead of the punishment she'd expected, she was being offered a chance to learn and grow. When the businessman announced that she would be among the first to attend the new training programs, she couldn't hold back a grateful smile. After the presentation, he approached her desk. The past is the past, he said quietly. What matters is what we do moving forward. He placed a book on her desk. Excellence in Hospitality Service. It was the first volume of many training materials she would receive. Throughout the day, workers came and went, attending their assigned training sessions. The businessmen stayed on site, talking with staff, listening to their ideas, and watching as the first deliveries of new equipment arrived. By evening, the hotel already felt different. The maintenance team had started repairs with their new tools. Housekeepers organized their new supplies with pride. Even the receptionist sat straighter at her desk, studying her training manual during quiet moments. Sir, she called out as he was leaving for the day. I'm sorry about yesterday, and thank you for this opportunity. He paused, turning back. You know what the best thanks would be? Show me what you can do with this second chance. Show everyone who walks through those doors that the Grand Plaza is a place where everyone is treated with respect. As he drove home that evening, he reflected on how much had changed in just 24 hours. Sometimes the best way to fight discrimination wasn't with anger or revenge, but with education and opportunity. The real transformation was just beginning, and he had a feeling this investment would pay off in ways that couldn't be measured in dollars and cents. 2 weeks into the hotel's transformation, the changes were already visible. Construction crews worked efficiently during off-peak hours, carefully updating one section at a time to minimize disruption. The lobby now sparkled with fresh paint and new lighting, making the whole space feel more welcoming. But the most remarkable change wasn't in the building, it was in the staff. The receptionist who had once turned people away was now one of the most dedicated students in the training program. One afternoon, an elderly couple walked in, looking tired from their journey. Without hesitation, she greeted them with genuine warmth, helped them with their bags, and even arranged for a complimentary room upgrade when she learned they were celebrating their anniversary. The businessman watched this interaction from across the lobby, a small smile playing on his lips. He'd been spending most of his days at the hotel, overseeing the changes while still running his tech company remotely. His presence wasn't about monitoring. It was about leading by example. During lunch breaks, he would sit with different staff members in the employee lounge, listening to their stories and ideas. The maintenance worker who had first spoken up about broken equipment now led a team implementing new energy-efficient systems throughout the hotel. The housekeeping staff had developed a new room preparation checklist that was so effective. Other hotels in the chain were asking to use it. "You've sparked something special here," his financial advisor commented during their weekly meeting. The numbers were already showing improvement. Bookings were up, and guest reviews were becoming more positive. But the businessman was more proud of the staff's growing confidence. One day, he overheard the receptionist handling a difficult situation. A guest was being rude to another visitor, making inappropriate comments. Instead of ignoring it or escalating the situation, she handled it perfectly, firm but professional, making it clear that disrespectful behavior wouldn't be tolerated while still maintaining the hotel's high standards of service. After the situation was resolved, she caught her boss watching and straightened up, expecting feedback. "I remembered what we learned in training," she said. "Every guest deserves respect, and sometimes that means protecting them from those who forget that." He nodded approvingly. "You've come a long way in 2 weeks." "I had a good teacher," she replied softly. "Well, many good teachers. This training program. It's opened my eyes to so many things I never understood before." That evening, as the businessman reviewed the day's progress reports in his office, formerly a dusty storage room, now transformed into a modern workspace, he received an unexpected visit. It was the regional manager who had helped with the sale. "I've been watching what you're doing here," the manager said, looking around at the changes. "Corporate is impressed. They're talking about implementing your training program across all our locations." The businessman leaned back in his chair. "It's not just about training," he said. "It's about giving people the tools and support they need to be their best selves. When you treat your staff with respect, they pass that respect on to others." Just then, they heard laughter from the lobby. The evening shift staff was gathering for their daily briefing, but it looked more like a family meeting. The maintenance worker was showing off the new tablet system they'd installed for tracking repairs. The housekeeping supervisor was teaching others how to fold towels into decorative shapes for VIP rooms. Even the once standoffish receptionist was sharing tips she'd learned about making guests feel special. "You didn't just buy a hotel," the regional manager observed. "You're building a community." The businessman smiled, remembering that first night when he'd been denied a room. "Sometimes life's biggest challenges lead to the most unexpected opportunities," he replied. "But only if you choose to respond with wisdom instead of anger." As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow through the newly cleaned windows, he could see his vision for the Grand Plaza taking shape. It wasn't just about making money or proving a point. It was about showing that change was possible when you gave people a chance to learn, grow, and be better than they were yesterday. 1 month into the transformation, something unexpected happened at the Grand Plaza. A local news crew showed up in the lobby, wanting to do a story about the hotel's remarkable turnaround. They'd heard about the positive changes from guests who couldn't stop talking about their experiences. The businessman was in his office when the receptionist knocked on his door, looking nervous. "Sir, there are reporters downstairs. They want to interview you about the changes we've made." He thought for a moment, then smiled. "No, I have a better idea. They should interview you and the rest of the team instead. You're the ones who made this transformation possible." At first, the staff was hesitant about being on camera. But as they started sharing their stories, their pride shone through. The maintenance worker showed off the new computer system that helped them fix problems before guests even noticed them. The housekeeping team demonstrated their new eco-friendly cleaning methods that left rooms spotless while protecting the environment. When it was the receptionist's turn to speak, she took a deep breath. "A month ago, I was part of the problem," she admitted honestly to the camera. "I had biases I didn't even realize. But our new owner didn't fire me. Instead, he gave me a chance to learn and grow. Now I understand that true hospitality means welcoming everyone with an open heart." The news crew was impressed by how the entire staff worked together like a family. They filmed the weekly training sessions where employees shared their knowledge with each other. The chef was teaching the front desk staff about dietary restrictions so they could better help guests with food allergies. The security team was learning basic phrases in different languages to make international visitors feel safer. During lunch break, the camera caught a spontaneous moment when the businessman sat with his employees in the staff room, eating the same cafeteria food and laughing at their stories. One of the reporters asked him why he spent so much time with the staff instead of in his office. "Because the heart of this hotel isn't in the fancy new equipment or the fresh paint," he replied. "It's in these people who come to work every day wanting to make others feel welcome. I'm just here to support them." Later that afternoon, something special happened. An elderly guest who had stayed at the hotel years ago came back for a visit. He was amazed by the changes. "I remember when this place was going downhill," he told the news crew. "Now it feels like a completely different hotel, but somehow also more genuine and welcoming than ever." The receptionist handled his check-in perfectly, remembering every detail from her training. She noticed he walked with a slight limp and immediately arranged for a room closer to the elevator. When she learned it was his wedding anniversary, but his wife had passed away, she had the kitchen send up a special dessert with a kind note. The news crew captured this interaction, amazed by the natural warmth and attention to detail. "This isn't something you can fake," the reporter commented. "This is real care for people." That evening, after the news crew left, the businessman gathered his staff. "Tomorrow, a lot of people will see your interviews on TV. They'll see the new furniture and the renovations. But what they'll remember most is your kindness and your dedication to making every guest feel special." The receptionist raised her hand. "Sir, I've been thinking. Could we start a mentorship program? I'd like to share what I've learned about overcoming biases with other hotels in the area." His face lit up. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes this place special. When we learn something valuable, we share it with others." As everyone headed home that night, there was a sense of excitement about the next day's news story. But more than that, there was pride. They weren't just hotel employees anymore. They were pioneers of a new way of doing business, where success came from treating everyone with dignity and respect. The businessman watched them leave, remembering that first night when he was turned away. Who could have guessed that one act of discrimination would lead to such positive change? Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's showing people a better way forward. The morning after the news story aired, the Grand Plaza's phones wouldn't stop ringing. People from all over the country were calling to book rooms and learn more about the hotel's transformation. But what touched the staff most were the calls from other hotel workers asking about their training programs. The businessman arrived that morning to find his receptionist handling calls with perfect grace. "Yes, we'd be happy to share our training materials," she was saying. "Our owner believes that when one hotel improves, the whole industry can benefit." As he walked through the lobby, he noticed something different. The staff moved with even more confidence than before. Being on the news had shown them just how far they'd come. The maintenance worker was proudly demonstrating the new tablet system to a visiting hotel manager. The housekeeping supervisor was conducting a training session for staff from other hotels in the city. "I never thought our story would inspire so many people," the receptionist said during a quiet moment. She pointed to her computer screen, showing hundreds of positive messages from people who'd seen the news report. "Look at this one. It's from a young hotel worker who says our story gave her courage to speak up about discrimination at her workplace." The businessman smiled, remembering something his grandmother used to say. "When you light a candle to show someone the way, you end up lighting the path for many others too." That afternoon, something unexpected happened. A group of business students from the local university asked if they could study the hotel's transformation for their class project. The businessman agreed, but with one condition. They had to interview the staff, not just him. The students sat in the staff room, listening intently as employees shared their stories. The maintenance worker explained how being trusted with new equipment made him feel valued for the first time in his career. The chef talked about how learning about different cultural dietary needs had made him a better cook. When it was the receptionist's turn, she spoke from the heart. "I used to judge people the moment they walked in," she admitted. "The training opened my eyes, but what really changed me was seeing our owner treat everyone with the same respect, from the CEO staying in our best suite to the housekeeper cleaning the rooms." One student raised his hand. "But weren't you afraid when you found out he bought the hotel after you turned him away?" The receptionist smiled. "At first, I was terrified. I thought he'd fire me for sure. Instead, he showed me that true leadership isn't about punishment. It's about helping people become better than they were yesterday." Later that evening, the businessman overheard two housekeepers talking as they arranged fresh flowers in the lobby. They were discussing plans to start an English language class for staff members who wanted to improve their communication skills. They'd already found a teacher willing to volunteer her time. "Should we ask the boss for permission?" one whispered. "Are you kidding?" the other replied. "He'll probably offer us the conference room and buy the textbooks. Remember what he always says. When we lift each other up, we all rise higher." He pretended not to hear them, but made a mental note to order those textbooks first thing tomorrow. This was exactly the kind of initiative he'd hoped to inspire. Employees looking for ways to help each other grow. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the lobby's elegant windows, a travel writer who'd been staying at the hotel stopped at the front desk. "I've stayed in 5-star hotels all over the world," she told the receptionist. "But I've never seen anything quite like this place. It's not just the service or the renovations. There's something special in the way everyone treats each other. You can feel it the moment you walk in." The businessman, passing by, couldn't help but feel proud. Not of the fancy renovations or the glowing reviews, but of his staff. They had taken his simple message of respect and turned it into something extraordinary. What started as a response to discrimination had grown into a movement of positive change, spreading far beyond the walls of one hotel. 6 months had passed since that life-changing night at the Grand Plaza. The hotel had become more than just a place to stay. It was now a symbol of how positive change could transform an entire community. One morning, the businessman walked into the lobby to find an unusual sight. A group of high school students were gathered around the receptionist, listening intently as she spoke. She had been invited to their school to talk about workplace ethics, and they'd come to see the hotel in person. "The most important lesson I learned," she told them, "was that it's never too late to change. 6 months ago, I was part of the problem. Today, I train other hotels on how to create welcoming environments for all guests." A student raised her hand. "Weren't you embarrassed when everyone found out about what happened?" The receptionist smiled gently. "At first, yes, but our owner taught me something valuable. It's not about hiding our mistakes, it's about learning from them and helping others do better." Just then, a busy tour group checked in. The students watched in amazement as the staff worked together like a well-oiled machine. The bellhop noticed an elderly guest struggling with a heavy bag and rushed to help. The maintenance worker quickly adjusted the temperature when he saw some guests looking uncomfortable. Every small detail was handled with care and attention. Later that day, something special happened. The hotel was hosting a conference for hospitality industry leaders. But instead of having the businessman give the keynote speech, he had suggested something different. His staff would lead the sessions. The maintenance worker shared how their new eco-friendly systems had cut energy costs while improving guest comfort. The housekeeping supervisor explained their innovative training methods that had reduced turnover and increased job satisfaction. Even the chef gave a presentation about making guests with dietary restrictions feel valued and respected. When it was the receptionist's turn to speak, the room fell silent. Many had heard her story, but few had heard it from her directly. She stood at the podium, took a deep breath, and began. 6 months ago, I denied someone a room because of my own prejudices. Today, I stand before you as proof that education and understanding can overcome bias. Our owner could have fired me. Instead, he invested in me, showed me a better way, and gave me chance to help others learn from my mistakes. During the lunch break, hotel managers from across the country gathered around her, asking questions and taking notes. The Grand Plaza's training program was becoming a model for the industry. Other hotels were reporting improved guest satisfaction and employee morale after implementing similar changes. The businessman watched from the back of the room, feeling proud, but not for the reasons many might think. He was proud because his staff had taken his simple message of respect and turned it into something far bigger than he imagined. That evening, as the conference was wrapping up, a young hotel worker approached him. "Sir," she said shyly, "I work at a small hotel in another city. We don't have fancy equipment or a big budget, but after hearing your staff speak today, I realize that's not what matters most. Can you tell me where to begin?" He smiled warmly. "Start with the heart," he replied. "Treat every person, guest or employee, like they matter. The rest will follow." As the day ended, the businessman gathered his staff for the regular evening meeting. The conference room was buzzing with excitement about the day's events. The maintenance worker was already planning workshops for other hotels. The housekeeping supervisor was organizing a mentorship program for new employees. "You know," the receptionist said, looking around the room, "when people ask me about the biggest change at the Grand Plaza, they expect me to talk about the renovations or the new systems. But the real change was in here." She pointed to her heart. "We learn to see each person who walks through those doors as someone worthy of respect and kindness." The businessman nodded, thinking about how far they'd come. What had started as a response to discrimination had grown into a movement of positive change, touching lives far beyond the walls of one hotel. Sometimes, he realized, the best way to change the world wasn't through anger or revenge, but through showing people the power of second chances and the transformative effect of treating everyone with dignity. 1 year had passed since that fateful night when a simple act of discrimination led to an unexpected transformation. The Grand Plaza was celebrating its anniversary, not just of new ownership, but of a complete change in how a hotel could impact its community. The lobby was filled with guests, staff members, and community leaders for the celebration. Beautiful decorations hung from the ceiling, and the air was filled with the sweet smell of fresh flowers and warm food from the kitchen. But the most remarkable sight was the wall of photographs near the entrance, showing the journey of transformation through hundreds of small moments over the past year. The receptionist stood proudly beside a group of new employees she had trained. Looking at her now, nobody would guess that a year ago, she had been the one turning people away based on their appearance. Today, she was one of the most respected trainers in the hotel industry, traveling to other properties to share her story of change. "You know what makes me most proud?" she told a reporter who had come to cover the anniversary. "It's not just that we changed one hotel. We showed people that change is possible anywhere if you're willing to learn and grow." During the celebration, something beautiful happened. A young couple walked in, looking nervous and tired from traveling. The receptionist immediately noticed their discomfort and walked over with a warm smile. After checking them in, she arranged for a complimentary meal, remembering how the businessman had taught her that true hospitality means seeing and meeting people's needs before they ask. The businessman watched this interaction from across the lobby, remembering that night 1 year ago when he had been the one treated differently. Looking around now, he saw how that painful moment had sparked something remarkable. The maintenance worker, now the head of facilities management, was showing visitors the hotel's new energy-efficient systems that had cut costs and helped the environment. The housekeeping supervisor was explaining their innovative training program to other hotel managers. Even the chef had started a program teaching cooking skills to unemployed youth in the community. As evening approached, the businessman gathered everyone for a special announcement. The crowd fell silent, expecting to hear about profit margins or renovation plans. Instead, he surprised them all. "Today, we're not just celebrating 1 year of change at the Grand Plaza," he began. "We're launching something new. Starting next month, we'll be opening a free hospitality training center for anyone who wants to learn about this industry. The center will be run by our own staff, teaching everything from customer service to management skills. The receptionist's eyes filled with tears as he continued. And our first program will be focused on helping people overcome their biases and create truly welcoming environments for everyone. Because sometimes the biggest obstacles we face aren't in our buildings or our systems. They're in our minds and hearts. The announcement was met with thunderous applause. But what touched everyone most was what happened next. The businessman handed the microphone to the receptionist, asking her to share her story one more time. She spoke from her heart, her voice strong and clear. A year ago, I was the person who judged others without knowing their story. Today, I stand here as proof that when someone believes in you, when they offer education instead of punishment, amazing things can happen. As the celebration continued into the evening, guests and staff mingled together, sharing stories and dreams. The Grand Plaza had become more than just a hotel. It was a beacon of hope, showing how one person's response to discrimination could create waves of positive change. The businessman stood by the window, watching the sun set on this remarkable day. A young staff member approached him shyly. "Sir," she said, "someone asked me today what made our hotel special. I told them it's not the fancy rooms or the new equipment. It's that we learn to see each person who walks through those doors as someone with a story worth hearing and a heart worth respecting." He smiled, knowing that this was the true measure of their success. In 1 year, they hadn't just transformed a hotel. They had shown the world that the best response to prejudice isn't anger or revenge, but creating opportunities for people to become better than they were yesterday. As the stars began to appear in the evening sky, the Grand Plaza glowed like a lighthouse, its warm light reaching out into the city. It stood as a testament to the power of second chances, the importance of education, and the simple truth that when you treat people with dignity and respect, you don't just change a business, you change lives.